In this episode, we sit down with Jeff and we talk about all the things you need to know to be successful this spring in Michigan when it comes to fishing. From creeks to inland lakes to the Great Lakes, we'll get you set in the right direction so that you can catch those big fish. All this and more on this episode of Beyond the Backyard.
Michigan Outdoor Obsessions Beyond the Backyard is brought to you by Ultimate Archery and Outdoors, Ultimate Deer Products, Red Light Food Plot Seed Company, Edge Attracts Incorporated, Jay's Sporting Goods, and Tacticam.
Everything is officially open for, well, other than Bass opens, what, Memorial Weekend? Is that when Bass officially opens?
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's catch and release for Bass. But for the most part, everything is open here in the state of Michigan. And so we wanted to bring you in to kind of enlighten us. I think a lot of it, we have a lot of people out there that fish and maybe want to get better at fishing, or people that, just want to get into it and don't know where to start. So enlighten us not only with your experience, but, tips for spring fishing and best way to go about it kind of for each species.
Okay. So, spring is here right now, but temps are all over the place across the border, across the entire state. We still have a lot of cool nights. Our afternoons are still generally pretty cool. I mean, we were warm today, but it's only for a few short hours during the day and it's cooling off. And that's even more so a greater change in the UP compared to the lower half of the lower peninsula. So that's going to be something to keep in mind through this entire podcast, because you're going to have to kind of tailor this whole thing to what you see going on in your area. And that's visually with the fish and also with what the water temps actually are. But right now, the big general pattern going on in all of our inland lakes, rivers, and even the Great Lakes is fish are looking for warm water. They're just coming off a long winter. They want to get into the warm water. Their ectothermal sensors are firing because daylight hours are getting longer and temps are increasing. So these fish are going into those shallow areas with the warmer water because, for one, that's where bait fish are going to be, but also to spawn. Now, so some fish have already spawned. Like you got your pike, your muskie, your walleye. They're kind of spawned out right now. Generally, the order is like pike, muskie, then your walleyes, your perch, your bass, and your crappies. They're either currently spawning, getting ready to spawn, or already spawned.
Yeah.
Okay. But either way, they're all going to want to head into those warmer waters that typically are going to be in the shallow water bays or coves of your inland lakes and your rivers. They're going to want to spawn.
And I know they're catching some pretty big. I know up our way, Charlevoix, Lake Charlevoix. They're catching some pretty big spawned out fish. I know someone that just caught a 13-pound spawned out female.
Holy cow! Yeah,
yeah,
man, that is a nice. Yeah.
So they're actively
so you're gonna have
feeding after their spawn period here.
Oh, big time, putting the feed bag on pre-spawn and post-spawn. So throughout this entire time, it's a huge time of year where you can capitalize on fish putting the feed bag on, getting ready to spawn, or coming off of spawning. So fish generally are going to want to go to these warmer waters, and that's going to be in your coves and your bays of these inland lakes and rivers. And that's where they're going to want to be at. That's currently where I'm focusing a lot of my effort at, is in these warmer areas, coves, bays of lakes and rivers. And if you're fishing rivers for steelhead, which honestly is kind of trickling out right now, that the height of that is really from the first 2 weeks going into ice out, and then your first 4 weeks after ice out. Okay, so you're kind of getting into the tail end of that here with steelhead. I know a lot of the guys that I talk to, that steelhead fish are starting to catch suckers now, and that's a good indication of that seasonal shift has already started for them. They're kind of at the tail end of it, and things are coming in after them.
So quick question, back to your walleye question. If someone, this right now, the time of year, obviously it's water temps, but if they're looking at a topography map of a lake, the drop-offs, all that kind of good stuff, what are they going to look for if you're just going to a lake you've never fished before to give yourself the best chance to possibly catch a walleye right now? Where are you going to look for on a map to try to put yourself in the best possible position for that?
The shallowest part of the lake.
Okay. Are you looking for flats?
I'm gonna flats, yes, extended flats that go into bays that are mainly shallow. If there's adjacent water to them,
Yeah.
like say if a lake has multiple coves and inlets with flats, if there's a section of the lake that has deeper water more adjacent to it, I would focus on those bays that are closer to that deeper water. Just because you know those bigger fish are going to associate to deeper water, and they always will. So they're gonna kind of more trickle out of those bigger sections of deeper water more than filing into the shallower parts of the lake. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I know a lot of guys up here as far as what they're using for walleye. They're using blade baits, and obviously your jig heads and stuff like that, dragging jigs on the flats and blade baits. But I had one guy tell me, I asked him one time, like, what do you use, for colors? And he goes, this is an older guy. He goes, back in my day, we didn't have all these flashy colors. He said you used silver on a sunny day and you used gold on a cloudy day. And he goes, you keep it simple and it's really not that hard. And obviously there's 1,000 different colors out there for baits.
Right. Like you said, though, the thin fins, even jigging wraps, jigs with swim baits, those are all really productive for walleyes right now. Whether you're fishing along a weed line or you're vertical jigging the river like Detroit River, that's mainly what you're doing down there for those.
I haven't really heard about Detroit recently. I mean, we get some guys that send pictures, obviously, and are they still catching them down there? Have you really heard much?
Yeah, it's really starting to fizzle out too. You're still catching them. Fish will go in and out of the river, but yeah, it is starting to fizzle out now.
Okay, so we got walleye, we got steelheads almost done. What's the next species that someone can probably dig into this time of year and maybe catch something?
So yeah, with the steelhead really trickling out now, I've been putting my focus in on the river. When I'm fishing rivers, I've been putting my focus in on walleyes, pike, and bass, and I'm doing that inside the coves or bays. Now, if you're fishing a section of river that has a lot of current or a dam above it, you're gonna want to get into the current or get up towards the dam more. Like literally just like 2 weeks ago, I was casting up on the dam and I pulled a really nice pike literally off the dam wall. And I missed the fish one time. I casted back at it a couple minutes later, saw the fish. It scooted downriver. So I ended up getting that one. But those fish, it's amazing how tight to the dam that those fish will stick during this time. And I think that's also because the dam I was fishing, the water below the dam in that section of the river is generally cool, and the section above it's dammed up for a long ways, and it's really slow. It's warmer, so the fish were piled up on the dam down there on the lower section in that warm water, away from the colder water below it.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay,
I've never done a lot of spring pike fishing. I feel like whenever we do it, it's typically in the winter, but I know they're pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
Have you ever caught any big ones there, right that same spot? I mean, do you ever catch any good sized ones there?
Yeah. So, I mean, a couple days before I caught that good one that I made a video on, I had missed another fish that I saw the fish with my daughter, and it was a mid 30-inch pike. Beautiful big fish.
Jeez. How far is this? So this is at the bottom of the dam that you're fishing, obviously. Yeah. How far is it to the nearest lake? Like, how far is this fish traveling to get up to that dam?
Oh, so it's an entire stretch of the whole stretch of river goes all the way to Lake Huron. It's the Thunder Bay River. Oh, and there's a series of dams all the way down. Okay. So depending on that section, the section of river you're fishing, it's interesting. Some fish will scoot over to the dams if they're closer to the sections of river that have more current and moving water, and they have access to the dam. I find the fish moving to that dam. Now, if your section of river does not have a whole lot of current or flow and there is no dam accessible, you're gonna want to get into the back bays and coves of of that river, because that's where your warm water is going to be. And
Okay.
in those back bays and coves, you're going to find, last year's weed growth, and also the start of this year's. And that's where pike want to spawn. Pike, muskies, even perch, bass. They'll all associate with those weedy areas that are shallow flats like that
Okay.
give them warm water.
Okay. Now,
Yep.
have you been trout fishing much?
No, not really.
No.
I went out a couple times, but April was kind of weird for us. I was busy cleaning up with the ice storm for quite a bit, but we had so many cold and rainy days. I had a hard time getting my daughter out there with me.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. When you're gonna go fishing with a kid, it has to. There's times that you would go out no matter rain or shine, but it's got to be a little more perfect. Just like ice fishing, it's got to.
Exactly.
You're not gonna get a kid to sit out there in cold temps without keeping them warm, and
I found out quick when it's under 10 degrees, it's really hard to get her out there and keep her out there.
Yeah, I can't imagine ice fishing, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I've taken my kids ice fishing, my 9-year-old, but if I took my 6-year-old out there, it'd be like putting a wild Wolverine inside of my deer, inside of my shanty, trying to keep him isolated.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Seriously. Yeah, she's hard to contain sometimes, but I just let her do her thing out there. We always have fun.
So what's the next tips we're gonna do to get someone successful? So we got steelhead. I mean, they're done. Walleye, you're gonna fish your flats.
Yep.
And then
you got your bass and your panfish.
Okay.
Your perch, right?
How do you fish bluegills this time of year?
Well, the worm, even a wax worm on a tungsten jig, under a bobber, yeah.
But do you find that this time of year, okay, as far as bluegills, their depths, are they any different than they? I mean, I know it's in the wintertime, obviously, fishing bluegills. The longer the winter goes, it seems like the deeper that you find them. Initially, I might catch them on the shallows, and in the middle of the winter, I'll catch them in a 28-foot deep hole.
Right.
What do you find this time of year? Are they coming back up, or are they still?
Yeah. So, and that shift happens during the ice season, actually. As late ice comes and ice out, I find all these fish moving back shallow.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to go try to find any remaining weeds left from last year that made it through the ice. And they're going to want to stick tight to them and start kind of holding their spawning grounds down throughout that duration of time till water temps are good for them to spawn.
Yeah.
Just like anything, they want to hold down an area that's safe for them. Even when fish go through spawning, they go through stages where they're actually maintaining they're seeking areas to spawn, and then they're maintaining their spawning grounds, and then they're using their spawning grounds. Okay, and then they'll also feed through their spawning grounds after that, because that they know that there's things coming in to feed on their spawn, and also things coming in to spawn right after them also.
Mm-hmm.
So it really does. When you have all these fish that are congregating towards these shallow, warm water areas, it creates this perfect scenario where you have a lot of fish in a tight area, that some of them are aggressive and ready to spawn or currently spawning. And you have some that are coming off of spawn and really hungry, and some that are getting ready to spawn and putting the feed bag on. So you have all this going on in a really small area. It's shallow. It makes for the perfect scenario for people to get out and even shore fish. I mean, you don't have to have a boat right now, because everything is coming in so close to shore into that warmer water and weeds
even like I've heard people catching lake trout off the shore this time of year.
Absolutely. Right now, yeah, even cohos, Atlantics, stuff like that can all be caught offshore.
So speaking of lake trout and big water fish, someone's heading out, going after targeting something in Lake Michigan or Lake Huron, one of the Great Lakes. What are they going to be doing to get set up for springtime fishing?
Okay, so you're going to have the same type of pattern going on in your Great Lakes. Now, The Great Lakes are kind of a different animal here because when things want to spawn in the Great Lakes, they tend to go to rivers to do that.
Yeah.
And it that you have a lot going on in those rivers at that time. You have walleyes coming into spawn. You have smelt that are coming in. You have all these things that are coming into these river mouths to spawn and feed. You have everything coming in behind them to feed too. And also, they want to be in the warm water. So the Great Lakes is generally cold, obviously cold, right? The river mouse are going to supply them with warm water. It's going to have, um, warm water discharge out there that's going to hold bait fish. Bait fish will like that. They don't want to be out in that colder, deeper water right now. But fish will also always associate to some type of structure. Um, and right now, for the Great Lakes, that structure is going to be tight to shore, which is great for shore anglers and pier anglers. I mean, your river mouse, there's usually a pier head at the end of the river mouth,
or for
right?
anybody that all they have is a dipsy diver, and they don't have the big rigs on the back of their boat, you know.
Yup. And honestly, right now, you could go out there and catch fish not even on dipsy divers. You can run high lines out there and be really productive, especially for Atlantics and steelhead right now.
Yeah.
When we fish for them, we typically focus high up in the water column, and we're running bright orange spoons. I mean, the brightest spoons.
Yeah.
But something to keep in mind with the Great Lakes too. So lately I've been fishing the rivers and lakes with big flashy baits, right? Big obnoxious baits. One, we got a few days of rain when I started fishing them heavy, so I was going with bright, and I was killing it with them. So after the rain stopped, I started I started right away with what was working, and it's continuing to work for me. So that's still what I'm using now. But same in the Great Lakes. Orange up high in the water column on a flat line could be killer for Atlantics.
Is there a certain brand that you like? I mean, do certain ones swim better than other ones? I mean, there's obviously all kinds of different spoons out there. Do you notice a difference much?
Yeah, well, yeah. So talking about the spoons, okay, yeah, I was talking about, big and flashy. Right now in the Great Lakes, I would not go big and flashy. Okay. You're typically going to want to downsize your bait to super slim spoons, Dreamweaver spoons, super slims, even small. I actually have some little Cleos, little tiny Cleos, right?
Yeah.
Quarter ounce, even half ounce Cleos. These are killer right now. Casting those off the pier, you can catch browns, cohos,
Cisco's.
Atlantics, steelheads. Yeah, right.
I know in
But
Charlevoix they catch Cisco's by the bucketful using those.
yeah, but that's one thing that's always interested me about the Great Lakes is you always think like, oh, great big fish, great big bait.
Yeah.
And that holds true, but typically that's more in the fall when you're really going for kings and stuff. I mean, you'll catch kings on super slims, and you can run standard spoons right now and catch an assortment of fish. But I wouldn't be running magnums, the big
Yeah.
size spoons right
Now, for as far as Lakers,
now.
would you typically use something like a peanut with a flasher, or what would you recommend for someone trolling for Lakers right now?
So yeah, flash, spinning glows. Those are always productive for lake trout. Spinning
Yep.
glows, flash. It's a kind of early for flasher flies, but cowbells are really productive too. Coincidentally, man, on our last trip out, we ran everything under the sun. We did super slim spoons, standard spoons, spinning glows. We didn't run any cowbells. We did flasher flies. The only thing to go was all spoons. We had no spinning glows or cowbells go. And that's interesting when you think of lake trout because you think it's always spinning glows and cowbells.
Yeah.
But no, it was nice being able to run all those spoons because you have a greater shot at getting, and at picking up an Atlantic or a steelhead or a coho. That's generally not going to happen on a spinning glow. Okay, so being able to run all spoons throughout the entire water column,
Yeah.
because lake trout will be all over the water column right now too. They're not just going to be tight to bottom like you think of them in the summertime. They're going to be all the way from the top to the bottom. So when you're able to run all those spoons like that and pick up, a bunch of Lakers and the possibility of an Atlantic or a coho, it's nice to be able that mixed bag and still, be able to run all spoons.
Okay. Oh yeah, because
Yeah.
if you run just your spinning glows, you are really just limited to lake trout, and that's basically
You,
it.
yeah, you are kind of limiting yourself there. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what as far as speeds, is there a certain speed people want to stick to when they're targeting these fish this time of year?
Yes. Yeah. And with the water temps being so that really this is going to apply to everything right now, back to your inland lakes and your rivers. With the water temps being cold, all your big fish and your bait fish are all moving slower. Okay. I'm not finding fish just screaming after baits and chasing them down. So
Mm.
you're going to have to slow your approach down, whether you're trolling or casting and reeling. You need to slow your retrieve back on your reel. Now back to trolling in the Great Lakes. Yeah, you need to slow down greatly. Okay. Like if you're trolling for walleyes in the Great Lakes right now, you're going to want to be going like literally a mile per hour, point 0.9 to 1.1. And you're going to want to be focusing on those river mouths or pier heads within the bay there. And if there's an island outside in the bay, it's probably about time, with fish coming in and out of the river now and already spawning out. They're probably going to go to that nearest structure out in the bay, which is probably going to be, an island or a point like that. So if you can find the warm water around those structures that are just slightly offshore, those can be great right now too.
Do you find
Especially,
this time of year with the Detroit River obviously slowing down? Do you find it starting to fire up? In your Linwood, your different areas, Au Gray. Does that start really picking up this time of year?
yeah, it's interesting to see that when you see the tail end of it in the south, below us, south of
Yeah.
us, you start to see the increase north of us. So you know that those fish, water temps are starting to climb across the entire lake, and not just in that big bay. We're starting to get it up the whole shoreline
Yeah.
now. So those fish will start to move up the shoreline with that.
What is, like, I obviously live over on the Lake Michigan side, and you're on Lake Huron side. What
Mhm.
is I mean, obviously the walleye guys. What is do you guys have a lot more co-hosts in Lake Huron?
No, we have way more Atlantics.
Atlantics?
Yeah, we have a great Atlantic fishery over here by me, especially in Alpena.
Wow.
Yeah, and actually the DNR, they just started increasing stocking numbers on Atlantics and cohos over the last couple years. So over the next 3 years, you should only see better numbers of those fish in our area.
I don't know why they don't. I actually have heard different fishermen around here talk about they don't know why they don't plant Atlantics on this side, over like in the Charlevoix, northern Michigan area, because I mean, I think so. For example, in Charlevoix, they used to plant somewhere maybe in the 200,000 to 300,000 salmon they used to plant, and now it's maybe
Oh
down.
wow.
Unless they might have increased it last year, but I know that it went from literally from 300,000 to 50 to 75,000. They like
Wow.
dropped off bad, and you could tell too, because I remember the first year I went salmon fishing up here in the fall. Uh, there was a ton, and then you could tell when that last batch came in of that 300,000 year, and then the following year you barely had anything in the rivers.
Yeah.
And because people were talking about, because all the bait fish. And then was it 2 years ago? We started having those AOY wash ups where we had
Okay.
back in
Yeah.
the day when we were kids, where you'd have the shores be covered in stinky dead AOY.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
so they're
Yeah.
talking about that supposedly kicking it back up. But I heard, back to our Atlantic salmon, I heard Atlantic salmon brought up, and they didn't know why they don't plant that fish because they are such a sturdy fish that can feed on multiple things. And and obviously Torch Lake, which is a lake around here, Torch Lake has Atlantic salmon in it, and people have said they're great fish to catch. So
yeah,
I don't know. We had Kings. Kings is our big thing in Lake Michigan. A lot of guys go out the charter boats for Kings, a big money maker for all the charter fishermen. Is that so? A lot of the charter fishermen on Lake Huron, are they targeting Atlantics then?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that are out here is advertising is the Atlantic catches mixed in with everything else. Yeah. I think we have
what surface level do they catch on? I mean, are they thermocline type of fish that's down low? Are they? Can you find them on the surface? I mean, what are these fish swimming at?
Now,
especially this time of year.
This time of year, right now, you're going to find them high in the water column.
Okay.
I mean, tight to shore, anywhere from 10 feet of water all the way out to 40, 60 feet, but they're actually going to be in the top 10, top 20 feet of the water column. Now, if you're fishing shallower, obviously in 20 feet, you'll be more like, 10, 15, right at the surface, even flatlining them. But as you scoot out, a little deeper, it'd be, 5, 10 feet underwater on a one color or a two color. Say you bump out to 40 feet, you could start running a four color, but you're going to get down halfway down in the water column at that point. And they can be there, but right now they're high up in the water column. They do like cold water though. So when a thermocline does establish in the lake, that's where they're going to go to.
Okay. So they're not gonna play that top surface during the summer, obviously.
No, not all year long. No.
Okay. And
see, just like your Kings.
Go ahead.
Just like your Kings, I mean, you can catch them up high in the water column right now, but once a thermocline is established, they're not going to be out of that thermocline, really.
No.
I mean, if you want to, right now, if you're targeting temp 42 to 55, that is perfect. That's home for them. Once you start getting above that, you're going to need to start going a little deeper.
Now, are you finding any guys? We got the big fish out there in Lake Huron, but do you guys have much people going after the perch fishing this time of year?
Not a whole lot. No, not that I've seen. That is, I mean, it's a big deal though. Yeah, right. You could go out in my backyard and catch them right now. The perch run the river. So when they start spawning in the rivers, they cruise up and down the rivers just like the suckers do.
I can't say I've ever caught a perch in a river.
Really? Yeah. I'm surprised with some of the perch I catch out there. We've seen 14, 15-inch perch out there. Yeah, and I catch them on square bill crankbaits too.
Holy cow!
Crazy. It's crazy to chase. Yeah, chase down a square bill crankbait, annihilate it.
How, like, where you're at? Are you right on the river, you said?
Yeah.
So, and you can catch basically every species that.
Well, I mean, because there's so many dams between me and Lake Huron, your salmon and steelhead don't make it up this far. And my section of the Thunder Bay River is a pretty warm section, so you don't really find much trout in it anyway.
Okay.
You do below me, though, in the section below me, like right now, this time of year, you can go down and cast little panther martins or little mep spinners up into the current and just kind of work them down into the current through the center. And you can pick up a lot of, brook trout, rainbow trout, and brown trout. And you can even apply that to the streams around you that hold trout year round. Right now, you can get them.
Yeah.
And fishing in the spring is generally really good for them. But in my experience, the rivers that I fish trout for, they get really muddied up at this time of year.
Yeah.
So I have a lot better luck just waiting till first week of June when the heavy rains stop and kind of getting after them then.
I feel like too when the water's really high, they kind of move everywhere. But when you obviously get those water levels as you get towards summer start dropping, they're going to be more in your holes. I mean, they're going to isolate to your holes.
Exactly. Yeah, I kind of like it when they get into those holes a little bit. It kind of consolidates them for you. Yeah. And when the water's so high, man, it can cover up so many trees and debris that you could go to a section of river that you fished before. You just haven't fished it this time of year, and you're going to get hung up on everything around you just because you're not used to it.
Yeah.
That is part of it, right?
And they don't
When
give
you're
away those spinners or the Panther Martins or
No, they don't. No. So when you're out there casting, be looking out for all the other ones that people lost around you and go ahead and pick them up because they'll be worth
the
it.
Christmas trees decorated with lures and
Yeah.
bobbers.
Yeah, but I really have best luck. Like I said, waiting till first week of June, and concentrating on those deeper holes. But if you're going to go about it right now, which is a great time of year to go about it, don't let me stop you. Get out there and get after them. But I would really put your focus in on the log jams within the river and your overhanging tag alders, sections of rivers that have a lot of overhanging tag alders. I would try to get down into those tag alders. If you can literally like slingshot your bait down right down the chute, get it down there. Any undercut banks within the shoreline, those are always great for fish hiding into.
Yeah. I know a lot of guys that target brook trout and stuff like that, and they said like you need to walk softly. I mean, like they're so sensitive to you're walking on the banks. I mean, you just can't tromp down there and throw a thing out and think you're going to catch a fish. You have to kind of almost like stalking a deer.
Yeah, I know. I have that problem when I go charging into these spots in the summertime with my side by side. I almost forget that. It's like, yeah, you must slow the side by side down. I'm yelling to Jess, hey, where'd you go? Oh, wait, yeah, okay, you gotta be quiet, right? Those fish are really spooky, though. You start charging down the bank. They're used to predators jumping offshore at them, so you don't want to go charging down those banks making a bunch of noise. No, those fish are going to be really wary of that.
Well, it sounds like everyone should get out there and try at least one of the species out. I mean, there's so many things going on right now. Like I said, at the end of this month, we have bass season officially opening up around the state.
Yep.
But if anyone ever has a fishing question, they should definitely send us an email at michiganoutdoorsobsession@gmail.com. We'll pass it over to Jeff here, and on a future podcast, we will answer it the best way we can. Like I said, we're not experts. We're just people giving opinions, man. Like and I know we talked about it before. It's and we live in a day and age where sometimes if you don't believe what I think, or you're wrong because you don't do it like me, and it's like the freedom of speech was put out there to protect the people that the things that you don't necessarily agree with. So.
Yeah, exactly right. This is just what's working for me.
Yeah,
right?
and it goes for fishing or hunting, man. Like I've learned more from just listening to people than I ever have. I mean, you obviously getting out there, you learn stuff. But then sometimes you'll just like hear a guy fishing, and you're like, man, I've never thought about that. I've never tried that. And next time you picked up a tip, and then you pass that on to somebody else. So it's just about taking what we learn along the way and just passing it down. And the next guy will pass it down, and so on and so on. I think sometimes
that's all you can do as a good sportsman.
Yep, I think sometimes
just try to help the next guy.
Sometimes in our society, we get stuck in this mentality that for even hunting and fishing, that you're wrong, I'm right, and that's just plain how it is. And I think we need more of this, where you can just share stuff and take what you need. If you know a better way, more power to you.
So be it, right?
Yeah.
I think you'll grow as an outdoorsman so much more if you just listen and talk to other people. And not everybody knows what they're talking about, right? But you could always pick pieces of information that apply to what you're working with, and don't limit yourself. It's basically what you're going to do.
I almost feel like me and Toby talked about this before, but even applies to fishing. I think hunting and fishing might be the most opinionated two things there are out there.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
There's a lot of people that will state stuff as facts, but in reality, there's just a bunch of opinions. And so, go out and do what works for you. Try some of these techniques out. Get out there, get outdoors. It's nice out. Get away from your TV. You've been around it all winter.
Exactly.
Go out
Yeah.
and enjoy the great fishing we have here in the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
But that's going to wrap it up for this week, guys. Thank you for watching. I want to thank Jeff for coming in and giving these great tips to us. We look forward to talking to him again soon. And for Jeff and myself, have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.